Hello and welcome to the Baby Loss podcast with me, Gabriella Austin. This podcast is for parents like myself to share their story around baby loss and miscarriage. In this episode, I will share my own story of the birth and loss of my daughter, Isabella Eden. Throughout the series, I will talk to friends who have suffered similar loss. Many of my new friends I met through a charity called SANS, which stands for Stillbirth and Neonatal Death. Baby loss is unfortunately more common than people think, and certainly more common than discussed. Whilst I would like to raise awareness around this taboo subject, my main aim is to provide parents with a safe place to talk about their babies, wherever they may be in their journey. 2020 was a year like no other. Loneliness set in for many, bringing back feelings and memories of loss. There is no judgment here, and every journey is different. Welcome to 2021, where we tell the stories of our babies gone too soon. Trigger warning for this episode: discussion on baby loss and miscarriage, and may contain explicit content. Right. Hello, today I am talking to my friend Becki, and she's going to be talking about her little boy, Myles. So over to you.
Thank you. So I'll just start with the basic stuff first on pregnancy, and then I'll get into the story of what actually happened. So found out I was actually pregnant on Ash's birthday, the 2nd of June, 2014. It literally came as such a shock, like a really, really, really good shock. We'd actually booked like a holiday for the December to go away for over Christmas, but then I would have been like ready to pop. So they obviously said, no, you can't, you won't be able to go on holiday. So we thought we then postpone it to the following year with a newborn, a 6-month-old baby, or do we then bring it forward a bit and go on like a little baby moon, because everyone goes on baby moons and try and enjoy like that last little bit of freedom that you get before welcoming this little bundle. So we decided to move the holiday to September to Cyprus. So the pregnancy was absolutely fine. The only small little, I say problems, the little things that happened were early on bleeding, which, you know, they said very common. Most pregnancies have bleeding and it's just unknown, but there's nothing wrong. So, you know, resulted in a few scans in the early pregnancy unit, but nothing was ever found and baby was always fine. I did have a miscarriage at 10 weeks, but with this early bleeding with Myles, it wasn't anything like that. So it was literally just the odd bit of spotting here and there. I didn't think anything of it. It was all normal. My 12-week scan, you know, was fine. And yeah, it was just a nice pregnancy, really. I then had my letter through for my 20-week scan, but I'd actually called up and asked them to change it the following week because I wanted to go on my birthday. So I thought, and it was literally like 2 days before we were due to fly to Cyprus. I thought it'll be a nice little birthday present and a nice little start to our holiday. So I moved that and had the scan, and again, everything was fine. He was growing perfectly. Yeah, it was lovely. So lead up to the holiday, nothing unusual, no bleedings, no pains, nothing, just a very normal pregnancy, really. Sunday we were due to fly out. Well, we did fly out to Cyprus. Again, the flight there was fine. Being pregnant, I was 21 plus 1, 2,
How long were you out? Yeah.
I was about 21 weeks. So yeah, the only annoying thing was keep getting up to the toilet on like a 5-hour flight, which is, sorry, I need to go for another wee. Sorry, I need to go for another wee. But everything else was fine. Like he was, I felt the movements. It was just amazing. So yeah, we went to Cyprus. The hotel was lovely. It was just lovely, just relaxing and making all these plans in our head about what the next a few months were going to be like and what to expect, and trying to prepare ourselves really for the biggest change of your life. So yeah, the holiday was lovely. Movements, I was feeling the movements, everything was fine. I then basically, on the Sunday before we were due to fly home, so on the Saturday night, I started getting little pains, like little niggly pains. I didn't really know what, but I thought, okay, it's pregnancy, I'm growing, he's growing. I tried not to think too much into it. And then I basically had gone to the toilet during the night and I'd got this discharge. So I remember sending a picture to my sister and saying, and actually one of my friends, and saying, like, is this normal? What is this discharge? And I remember my sister saying to me, Beck, like, that's not normal, you need to be seen. So in my head I'm thinking, like, what's not normal about this? Like, I'm almost 22 weeks pregnant. I've had no other issues during the pregnancy apart from that small bleeding at the beginning. Like, he's moving. What could be wrong? So I decided to just kind of not ignore it, but kind of put it to the back of my head. And I knew we were flying home tomorrow, like on the Sunday. So I thought, it's fine, I'll wait. And then when we get home, I'm going to go straight to the hospital. So Sunday came, we'd packed, and I was literally in that lobby from checkout, and I was just ready to get on that plane. Yeah. I was like, I need to get home, like, just get me home now. Like, I'm just ready. I just needed to be home. We weren't due to fly until like 9 o'clock in the evening, so we literally had all day waiting. And I can't tell you, that day just dragged and dragged and dragged. Like, every time I looked at the clock, it just literally didn't seem to change. And then during the day, as the day went on, I started getting more pain. It got to the point where I even rang the hospital back home, and I said to them, look, I said, I'm getting this pain, like, and I'm feeling like I need to push. Like, what do I do? And they said, you're not going to get on that plane, you're not going to make it, you need to get to a hospital out there. And I literally remember looking at Ash and thinking, shit, like, we're in a foreign country, 22 weeks pregnant, I'm obviously, something is going on, like, what do we do? Anyway, I remember him going to the shop in the hotel and buying paracetamol. Because I thought, right, let me just see if I can get through this with some paracetamol on that flight, get myself home and then get to the hospital. I said, that's what we're doing. I said, I'm just going to get through this. It's a 5-hour flight. What is the worst that's going to happen, literally? Because at that stage, you don't realise how quickly actually labour can progress. Mm-hmm. I thought, right, get on the plane, grin and bear it, sit there and just get home. Well, Myles had other ideas. It was about, I think it must have been about 6:30, 7:15 in the evening, something like that. And I literally just remember standing up in the lobby and pulling my trousers down and pushing. I said, I was screaming. I said, I've got to push. I can feel something coming. I can feel something coming. I need to push. So they literally, all the staff were amazing. They basically cornered it off. They rang the ambulance. They rang whoever they needed to ring. And there was one lady there in particular called Eddie, who I've stayed in contact with ever since. And she basically held my hand the whole time, like reassured me. Every time I was pushing, she was, patting my face, holding my hand. She was just amazing. And then I remember the ambulance turning up. We got in the ambulance, they took me in the ambulance. They didn't really do much of an examination in the ambulance, but they said to us that they were taking us to a state hospital in the middle of maybe Nicosia. I can't remember, because I had the most specialised unit for premature babies. So they said, if you're going to premature labour, we need to get you to like the best possible place. So we thought, premature labour, like it can't be happening. I'm 22 weeks pregnant. He's still got 18 weeks inside of me. Like this, you don't hear about this. What is going on? This is not, you can't think of that because you don't know anything about it. So I remember we got to, oh, hold on a second. They'd taken us to a private hospital first to scan me and to examine me. So they scanned me and said he was fine. Like he was moving, he was breathing, everything was fine with him. He was quite low down, like his head was quite low down. And I could still feel him moving, like it was just normal. I just had these urges to push. So they examined me and I was about 1 centimetre dilated. So they'd given me a drug to stop dilation, stop like the labour, basically the contractions, to stop all that. And they put the injection in and I had the drip, and just basically stop what they could. And then that's when they transferred us to the bigger hospital. We then got to that hospital and the medication that they'd given me wasn't working. So I was basically still dilating, and I was about 3 centimetres dilated, and they basically just said there's nothing we can do, you're just going to have to give birth. But bearing in mind, this was all in a foreign country, so it was all a broken language. Basically, there was obviously that massive language barrier. We didn't know anyone. Ellie had obviously gone back to the hotel. She'd come with us to the little private hospital, but when they took us to the big hospital, she'd gone back to the hotel, which was fair enough. She couldn't come that far. So we were basically on our own in this foreign country, about to give birth, with no understanding really as to what was going on and what was going to happen. Nothing mentally or physically could have prepared me for what was about to happen. So when you think of labour, you think of lovely things, don't you? You think of, you've got the people around you that you love supporting you. You've got people there, telling you what's happening, what's going to happen next, and what to expect, which I'm sure it's like in some circumstances, but in this circumstance, it wasn't anything like that. So they'd moved me onto a ward when we got there, and all I could hear was mums and babies.
Yep.
So it was a ward, obviously, where they'd just given birth and there were new babies and new mums. Then left me there for an hour or so, and then they decided to move me down towards the bottom of the hospital, and I was in a room of like 6 beds by myself, and I'd had numerous people coming in and out, not saying anything, just in and out, doing what they needed to do, checking stuff, but literally not saying anything. I then had, Ash was here, and then I then had a couple of doctors at the end of my bed, obviously saying something in Cypriot, whatever they were saying, we don't know, but they were sniggering. And I just remember Ash looking at me and was like, I won't repeat what he said, but he was like, why are they laughing? Like, what is there to laugh about? You're in labour, about to give birth to, you know, a very early baby. What could be so funny? And I just remember thinking, like, this, you know, this can't be happening. Like, what are we witnessing? This just doesn't seem real. Anyway, it was getting to the stage where I was 5 centimetres dilated and I just wanted to push.
Mm-hmm.
So they then sent Ash out of the room and had basically told him to wait outside. So I was then basically gearing up to get him out, get Myles out. I had a midwife to the left of me. She'd broken her arm. I'll always remember that. So she had her arm in a sling. And then I had 3 doctors still around the bed. And then it literally took seconds,
Mm-hmm.
because of how small he was. You know, you only have to be 4 or 5 centimetres dilated to deliver a baby at 22 weeks gestation. You know what it is.
Yeah.
So it literally took seconds, but I just remember those seconds felt like hours. It just seemed to go on and on and on. And I remember getting to that last push when I could just feel him coming out, and I just screamed. I gripped the sheets and I just said, I can't do this. And all I wanted was someone to just hold my hand, or, you know, just give me some sort of reassurance. But they just stood there and just literally just let me get on with it by myself. So I delivered him. And I remember them, like, they basically left him in between my legs on the bed, and they'd left him for about 2 or 3 minutes. And that's when they then said, obviously, you know, he's not made it. We're not resuscitating. You know, it's 22 weeks. He wouldn't be viable. So they left him in between my legs whilst they sorted everything out. And I didn't know if I should have looked down or not, but I didn't look down. I just let them do what they were doing. And then they then actually told Ash that he could come in now that I'd delivered. And I remember Ash coming in. And then from then, it was just all such a blur, really. I don't really remember what happened after that. I know that they basically put him in a box and told me that they had to put him in the freezer so that he didn't decompose, that sort of stuff. So they took him away, and then they moved me to my own room, like a private little room, where we stayed for a couple of days. But it got to, so he was delivered at 1:15 on the Sunday morning, so like Monday morning, sorry. And then Monday evening, I just knew that I needed to see him. I knew that I needed to see. Why wouldn't I want to see my baby that I just delivered? So they were all very, in Cyprus, I think it's quite different here. They're all very, you know, you've lost a baby, right, that's it. Move on, get on with it now. They try and brush it under the carpet, and, you know, it's not really, they don't make a big deal out of it out there. It's just very hush hush and get on with it now. It's happened. you know, crack on with what you're doing.
Some places believe that it's best to not see the baby.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember them saying to me, like, you don't want to see him. And I was like, I do want to see him. Why would I not want to see him? So we had Ellie, he'd come to visit us from the hotel. And I'd actually said to her, like, please, can you ask them to bring him so I can see him? So she asked them and then arranged all that for me. So they brought him to us on Monday night. And he, obviously some people might find this hard to listen to, but it happened. So he was basically in a little box, no clothes on, no blanket, and he had like a label, just a big label, and we'd obviously named him Myles. So he had a label with his name, time of birth and the date, and then his weight, and it was just laid across his tummy basically. So yeah, they brought him to us in that little box and left him with us so that we could see him. And he just looked like a small baby, just literally perfect. Like, you know, he had his mouth, he had his little fingers, everything, and it was just, it was precious. And I actually took a couple of pictures, and I'm so thankful that I actually took those pictures, because without those pictures, I think it just would have been harder, a lot harder. I mean, it was hard in the fact that obviously I never got to hold him. I didn't get to feel like what he was like, and we only had like an hour with him. So that was that time that we had with him. And then they told me that I needed an operation because I hadn't delivered all of the placenta. And they said I wouldn't be able to fly home until I'd had that because they didn't want me to hemorrhage or anything. So I had that operation in the evening. But I remember going down for my scan after the operation. Well, actually, when I had the operation, I'd basically woken up to a lot of them like literally slapping my face. They poured water over my face because I just wasn't responding. And I remember Ash told me as well, like after he was they were so worried that I wasn't going to wake up. And in my head, I just thought, I just lost my baby. Why would I want to wake up? I had, you know, my baby had gone. All I'd wanted to do was be with my baby. So what would have been the point in waking up? Anyway, I did wake up. They done their operation. It was fine. I then gone for a scan to make sure that everything had gone from the operation. They'd wheeled me down in a wheelchair with a gown on. Obviously, I was bleeding, you know, after birth, bleeding loads. They then left me in a room with pregnant women who were waiting for their normal scans. They left me in the middle of the room, surrounded by these women in my wheelchair, my gown all the way undone at the back, pouring with blood. And they told me to wait to be called. And Ash was like, I'm not having this. So he then decided to wheel me down and put me around the corner, and we waited around there. We then got called in for our scan, and the sonographer bloke, who was an absolute pig, he was just diabolical. The first thing he said to me was, you won't be able to get him home. And I was like, excuse me? I'm sorry, but whose decision is this? And who are you to tell me that I will or won't get my baby home? Sorry, but no. And then he was like, it's impossible. No. We'll see what happens. We'll see. But thank you for your input. You can keep that input, but thanks anyway. Had my scan, everything was fine. Went back to the ward and waited to be discharged. There was an awful nightmare with going back to a hotel because our insurance company was supposed to have sorted accommodation out for us, and they hadn't, and we were being discharged and being left with no accommodation. And it was, that's a whole other story, but the insurance company was actually such a nightmare, and we actually managed to sue them because of how bad they were, and the situation that they left us in was just disgusting. I became really good friends with the Thomas Cook rep out there called Sarah, and she actually really helped us. And she, before we could fly home, basically, I had to get like a fit fly certificate. So I had to do a couple of tests on me, but everything was fine. Like my blood counts were back down, so everything was fine. I got my fit to fly, but she actually took me to that appointment. She could speak Cypriot, so she, was there to translate and basically make sure I was getting that certificate to get home. So she was really supportive of that. We actually went back to the hotel where we'd been staying anyway, and stayed there for a couple of nights, and then flew back. I think we must have flown back on that Friday, so we've been out there for almost another week. And I remember getting on the plane, and on the way there, obviously I'd had my pink notes in my hand luggage, and I thought, what do I do now? Do I put my pink notes in my hand luggage, or do I put them in my case? What do I do? And I got on the plane and I sat down, and a heavily pregnant woman got on the plane and sat in front of me with her pink notes. And I just thought, of all the times, there was no one else pregnant on my flight. There, I was the only pregnant one. Why now is there a pregnant woman in front of me? It was just horrible. And that flight home was just horrendous. Coming home empty. But yeah, luckily we managed to get Myles home, and they got him to the funeral directors a couple of days later, and we were actually lucky to be able to go and see him. They called it like the chapel of breast, so they'd put a little blanket on him, and yeah, we'd chosen like this little, it was like almost like a Moses basket. We'd chosen what we were going to have him buried in, and yeah, that was lovely to get actually spend some time with him. And I'm so grateful that we managed to get him back home, because I just can't imagine leaving him out there for those few days anyway.
Yeah, because he didn't come home on the same flight as you, did he?
No, he had to come home on a separate flight, on a cargo flight, because he wasn't allowed to come, obviously, with us. So he was on a cargo flight a couple of days later on the Sunday. So yeah, I mean, the whole experience with the hospital was just disgusting. Like there was no sympathy, there was no emotions. Like for even the little things, like they didn't offer Ash a bed. He slept on a chair the whole time. They offered him like no shower, no food. For the few days he'd get stuff, but Ellie actually bring him loads and loads of food, bless her, from the hotel. And when we actually got back to the hotel for the couple of days that we stayed there before flying home, the hotel staff were just amazing. Like we'd got to the hotel room and they'd left us, like cakes, and they'd bring food to us if we didn't want to go out, and they were just lovely. And Sarah, the Thomas Cook rep as well, she was really, really good. And we've stayed in contact since. I've seen her once in between, because she actually flew here for a meeting a couple of years ago, and yeah, I was lucky enough to meet her, and I was due to go to her wedding, obviously, last year, but because of Corona, that sadly got cancelled. So yeah, Myles came home, and then we had him buried. I think it must have been the day after you, or the day before you.
Day before.
Okay.
So what date was that? You Right. The only
October.
reason I ever remember any of like scan dates and due dates and the
Yeah,
funeral is because you remember all the dates and I don't remember
yeah.
any of them.
I can't remember the funeral date, but I remember my due date was the 28th of January,
Mm-hmm.
and you were the day before.
Yep.
And then I had Miles on the 22nd,
And I
and
had
you
her
had
on the
Isabella on the
23rd.
23rd. So it was just very strange. And we were both 22 weeks pregnant.
Mm-hmm. To the
So
day
yeah,
as well,
that's
like 22 to the
literally,
day.
yeah. And then
And
that's
then
how we obviously met, was at the cemetery on Christmas
Christmas
Day,
Day.
2014, wasn't it?
Fucking hell.
December. Yeah, December 2014. It was Christmas Day. Um, and then yeah, I remember us sharing all our stories in the cafe over a coffee,
Mm-hmm.
just talking about our different experiences. And then I then got in touch. Well, I'd been put in touch with a bereavement midwife who was just
Yeah. Oh, we love
she
her.
she was literally literally a godsend. And even to this day, we're still in contact. And uh, I, especially with my experience, I mean, no experience is worse than any other, because a baby loss, regardless of experience, what's happened, is horrific. And no woman, or no dad, no mum, no one should experience it. But with my experience, I think it just really helped having her, that support, and some reassurance, especially with the whole being away from home,
Mm-hmm.
not receiving care that probably we should have received. It was just so nice to have her. And then obviously got put in contact with Sans, who, especially in the early days, oh my goodness, they were just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Just so, so amazing. And just going there, that safe place, and being able to talk about your baby and not being judged, not being, having the cliche comments, oh, well, you can still get pregnant, or,
Mm-hmm.
it happened for a reason,
Yeah.
not having that. There
Maybe
was
the
none of
baby
that
wasn't
there.
formed properly. Well, no,
Mm.
they were.
Oh, well, you were only 22 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, but you still have to give birth, and they still come up breathing. They're still a baby.
Mm-hmm.
But there's things that you just don't want to hear. And at Sand, especially, and obviously with you, especially when we used to meet up, there was never any of that. It was just understanding and listening. And yeah, that really, really, really helped me through, definitely, definitely through those
Mm-hmm.
dark days. um
I think for like maybe the first 3 years of our friendship, we spoke every
yeah,
day. I think just every day.
literally, 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 yeah.
Really every
I
day.
just it, it just helped having, especially because we were so close with everything, our dates. And
Such a small world. And I knew Ash
yeah,
from school.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just crazy, isn't it, how we were brought together through sadness, but
Mm-hmm.
we've become such good friends. And I'm just grateful that Isabella and Miles are
Are
together.
together.
And we'll always have that as well. We'll always have that for us as well. So that definitely,
Yeah.
it's definitely some reassurance. Um,
My mum
but
says
yeah,
that that Christmas, that Christmas Day,
yeah,
obviously the Christmas before, I've had a couple of miscarriages, so
yeah,
that was just a shit Christmas. It was horrible.
yeah.
And she said that I came like bouncing up the stairs with this big smile on my face, and I was like, guess who I just met? Thinking it was somebody famous. The way I was like, you'll never guess who I just
Like,
met. Yeah. Um, I said, Miles that's buried next to Isabella. I said, his mum and dad were there, and
oh,
I know Ash from school, and just everything like that. It was just so.
so strange, isn't it?
And I was like, I can't remember, like, either I asked for your number or you took my number, or whoever
Yeah,
initiated that. And then, yeah, well, like I said, we then text each other
yeah,
every day for,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, we used to meet obviously because I was on. I was on leave, and I
Mm-hmm.
think you were on leave as well. So we
Yeah,
used to meet every day. Well, not every day, but pretty much
pretty
a
much every
couple of
day.
times. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and just I think we definitely helped each other through, definitely,
yeah,
because I think because we were in such a similar situation with regards to like gestation and
yeah. But also
that kind of
we'd both had the 10-week miscarriage before.
yeah, yeah,
We were the same, similar age. You're a bit younger than me, but yeah, same age. Um, yeah, both 22 weeks. Buried the day before Isabel. Yeah,
yeah.
it was so
Due
bizarre.
the day before,
Hmm.
so weird how it was just all so close, but
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, that's
No
my
matter how many times we can talk about Myles, you're, like you said, losing a baby is the worst pain ever, and you wouldn't wish it on
yeah,
anybody.
no,
Um, but and children, even when you're in your 30s, or
yeah.
or your child dies when you're 30, it's unnatural. You shouldn't
You
have to
shouldn't have to
bury your
bury
child.
your child. No.
Mm-mm. And but with what happened with you and your care in Cyprus is just it's just so sad, and I'm
Mm.
so sorry. It's so unacceptable, and
Mm.
it's just it,
It-
yeah.
You just don't expect it. And I mean, I think to this day, I'll always have a bit of guilt with me for going on that baby moon. And I remember my sister even saying to me, like, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And I was thinking, but why? You know, I'm 5.5 months pregnant. I'm not going to get this opportunity again to go on a holiday with no child. I just want to enjoy that week of sunshine, you know,
Hmm.
and just have that me time. So why would I not want to go on it? Because, you know, you don't hear of
Mm-mm.
early
No.
labour and
And also, in all of the baby books, the baby websites, all of that stuff, they actually tell you that the best time
baby.
is
Yeah,
to go when you're about 20 weeks
yeah,
pregnant, before you can't fly anymore. And
exactly.
I think they literally write the words, as the midwife certainly told me this, that you're now less likely to miscarry because you've
Yeah,
passed 12 weeks. And when
yeah.
you hear that from a midwife, you think, okay,
You have that relief,
that's,
don't you?
yeah.
Yeah. You think, okay, so I've been told this by a professional.
Hmm.
It's not going to happen,
Yeah.
but like you know, it's a lot more common than
Hmm.
what's out there, and it's just I know people, especially when they're pregnant, people don't want to hear about baby loss. And, you know, to be honest, if I hadn't have experienced what I've experienced and I was pregnant,
You wouldn't want to hear it
I
either.
wouldn't want to hear it. No,
Mm-mm.
because why would you want to hear of something so horrific?
Yeah.
But the sad reality is, you know, it's 1 in 4. You know, it happens, and I know of so many people like my friend Sarah, Thomas
Yep.
Cook Rep.
You
She
can't
won't mind me
believe
talking
it.
about this. No, so
Believe
she
it.
had been with her partner for years and years, and they've been trying and trying. And I remember when she finally messaged me with her pregnancy test, and she was pregnant. And this was like the year after we'd lost Myles, and I was so happy for her. And I just thought, God, like this is some good news. This is
Yes.
perfect. No, exactly the same as what happened to us. 21 weeks, she had Adam. Exactly the same, premature labour. And you just think, oh my goodness, like how common is this? It just clearly happens
Yep.
so much more. But again, she experienced similar to me, like no, not really that great a care and brushed under the
Oh God.
carpet. So yeah,
Do
it's
you know
just
if she got time with Adam? Like, did she get pictures and
yeah,
cuddles and
yeah. She got
stuff?
time, and and she sent me pictures of him, and you know, just
Oh.
a beautiful little boy. Yeah, perfect little baby. She actually got the time, which was obviously, you know, that definitely helps.
Hmm.
I definitely think that with any baby loss, you need that time. You definitely need that time, and I just wish I'd had more time, and I wish I'd had the opportunity to hold him at least. Um, you know, there'll always be those little regrets that you have, like for me, for going on holiday, for not saying, no, I want to hold him, let me hold him, you know.
You're not in a state to say that. You're in complete
You don't
shock.
think,
You're also
yeah,
losing blood, so you're in like
yeah,
physical shock as well, you know.
yeah,
And what you shouldn't say, but it is what I say, is that if it happened again, oh my God, I would do this, 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 and this, and I would make sure
you
I'd
know
get.
what to do, yeah,
But you
yeah.
don't know what to do
Not
in
in
that
that situation.
situation. Mm-mm.
No, because it's just so, you're not prepared for it. And why should you be prepared for
No,
having a baby at 22 weeks? You just shouldn't. It just shouldn't. No, it just doesn't. It just doesn't even bear thinking about. But yeah.
no. I have. There is one big regret that I have, but this was after she was born.
Mm-hmm.
Is that there's not more pictures of me holding her.
Yeah.
You know, like when she had a bath with my ex,
Yeah.
and he got in and he was cuddling her, and I, you know, you can see her whole, like the whole length of her body in that picture,
Yeah.
and it is just, it's lovely, and
Yeah.
you know, he lost her as well. He did lose a daughter that day. You know, this, I say I a lot, but it's because we're not together anymore. So
Yeah.
I'm telling my side of it, if you like.
Yeah. Of course.
But yeah, he's just sort of like looking at her, and I wish I had one of those pictures.
Yeah.
But there you go, I don't. And I remember thinking like, oh no, next time I'd have loads of photos and I'd pass around the room and I'd have got a picture of my brothers and my parents. But you're not thinking. The
No.
last thing I wanted to do is actually get my phone out anyway.
Yeah. It's easy to sit here now, isn't it, and say
Mm-hmm.
I'd do this and this but yeah. So that was my experience.
Mm.
But yeah.
Thank you for talking about him.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me on here.
I mean,
I
I
think
love. Sorry, carry on.
no, I was just gonna say it's a lot easier now, like
Yes.
6 years down the line, to be able to sit here and not burst into tears
Mm-hmm.
thinking about what's happened. But it's crazy how it's just all still so fresh in your mind. Like I can still relive that day. It's just one of those things that will never
Never leave.
ever leave. But the pain of, you know, when you lose your child, it's it's a pain like no other. I can't explain to you what the pain is like. Like, you know what it's like, but I can't explain to anyone that hasn't experienced baby loss, child loss. It's a pain that no other. Like you're in a world of loneliness. You're
Yeah.
empty. I honestly felt like my arms physically ached. They just physically ached. And I know that sounds so silly, but
No, that's exactly how I felt.
my arms just ached to hold that baby. But as the days and weeks, the months and the years have gone on, the pain's definitely gotten a lot easier. It's not gone away, and it will never ever go away because they're a part of you, and there'll always be that child that will never be here on their birthdays, for Christmas, you know, all those times that they should be here, they're not. But it definitely does get that bit easier every day, and you find yourself dealing with it in your own way,
Yeah.
and you become a new normal. And that's a
New
very
normal. Yeah.
very common thing that anyone who's experienced baby loss will tell you is you'll never be that person that you were. You will change, but you will become a new person, and that will be your new normal, and you are shaped as that person because of the baby that you've lost.
Mm-hmm.
So I am who I am now because of Myles, and I'll just be forever grateful that I had the opportunity to, you know, mother him for those months and
Mm-hmm.
to give birth to him. And, you know, I still talk about him,
Mm-hmm.
and he'll always be my child. And yeah, it's just sad.
It's little things as well. Like no matter what may happen to me or you in the future with more children, like Isabella's always just going to be like the picture on my phone. Like, do you
Yeah,
know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
okay, that's me and Rob now, but like this one, it's just always going to be her.
yeah. And I mean, obviously, I'm lucky enough to have gone on and had my rainbow, and he knows about Myles, and you know, I take him to the cemetery to see him,
Mm-hmm.
especially for things like birthdays and Christmas. And he knows that he's got a big brother called Myles, and that he's a star. And you know, I've got a picture of Myles in the living room, and he'll point and he'll say, you know, that's Myles, and
Mm-hmm.
Myles is asleep, and you know, he's involved in everyday life, and
Yeah.
you know, and I think that's important as well, definitely for me to be able to continue that.
Yeah.
Really. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, but yeah, like I said, thank you for talking about Myles, and I'm
Thank
so
you.
sorry that it happened to you.
Thank you.
I love you.
I love you too.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for talking to me. And I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Well, when
Thank
COVID's
you.
over.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for finding the Baby Loss podcast and listening to my story and remembering Isabella. If you would like to be a guest on my podcast and share your baby story, or if you would like your Baby Loss charity featured, then please get in touch by searching Baby Loss Podcast on Instagram, Facebook and my YouTube channel. If you have been affected by today's episode, then please reach out. SANDS can be reached via their website sands.org.uk, spelled SANDS, and of course their Facebook page. If you require immediate help, you can call the Samaritans 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for free on 116 123. Thank you for listening and see you next time.